Just because you have a business doesn't mean you have a brand.
A business has a personality. And I think a brand is a personality. It's like no different than we are as personalities. We have certain set of traits, behaviors, and idiosyncrasies that we have. That's part of us. It's who we are. But I think that is what a brand should be. And I think that when it comes to a business needs to have a personality, and that needs to be a personality that people can get behind, that they can follow, that they can like. Sometimes you look at it, it's the loudest person in the room, or it's the life of the party, and it's like that person that's just infectious, and you want to hang out with them. Like in many ways, people idolize. How do I become that as a brand? And it's like part of it is be yourself, right? So it's an interesting sort of perspective, but brand is so simple yet so complex.
A brand is about understanding the story that your business tells. Imagine yourself in a Nike hotel. The Nike hotel has all of the sports paraphernalia, all of the colors that you associate with Nike. Now take the same with the Delta Hotel brand and imagine a shoe built by them. It's a lot harder because the brand isn't as transparent as Nike is.
I know as a young agency, the realization that I was an agency already was the hardest thing for me, because I was a creative and then I got a team of creatives, and then one day Brady pulled me aside and he's like, run the agency. Like, you're an agency owner, basically coordinate this, because we're getting these clients in who don't know, right? We're getting agencies in who know, right? So like we worked with you guys and we've built some really cool brand stuff because you knew what a brand looked like.
Yeah.
But then a lot of the times clients showing up, they're just like, here's what I do, right? Like, I make this glass of water. We make the best glass. It's got the best rim here. Like, no one else has made a smoother kind of like glass to drink from. The weight's perfect. They can tell you all the things about it.
Yeah. And
then they are concerned that they're not making any sales. I'm like, okay, so what if I told you that, your brand needs to stand for something? I always tell every single client, this is like, if you don't stand for something, then you're just going to fade away into the crowd. And the only way to stand out is to actually be that person and embrace it. And like you said, like, good or bad, embrace it. In fact, there should be some bad of good, because if not, it's just mediocre, and mediocre gets lost, right? Complacency is not an option to go forwards, right? And it's easy, right? Because then you can sit there and say, why make the best glass?
Right.
People will show up eventually because they'll drink out of it. No one's going to drink out of that glass.
I think sometimes that, when we have, there's that brand and brand story, there's also the problem we're solving.
Yes.
The problem that we're here to solve. Why do I need that particular glass of water?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That water that will make my life better.
Yeah.
So is there a way to look at that? So it's motivations, desires, pain points. It's the way I always look at them. So it's if there's a way in which you're solving a particular thing, you get zero in and you focus on it. Use that as part of your fabric of your brand story as well.
Yeah.
So, and then you're championing a cause as well.
Yeah.
Something that we're fighting for.
Yes.
We're fighting for better water.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Already you're getting me more interested in this glass by just that one phrase.
Right.
I have a saying which is DFS, desired future state.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. And I say to my clients all the time, like, what's your DFS?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want to be when you grow up?
So they get confused.
Yes. Yeah, they do. Well, I like to confuse them at first because it makes them go, oh, maybe I don't know what I want to do here, which is sometimes you have to put them on their back foot to be able to make them realize, to get them to step back and look at the wider picture for a second to see it and then go, oh, okay, now I see what you're going for. Yeah, like no one knows with this glass because we don't stand for anything. Now, if we said the world deserves clean water, they're already doing that, right? Yeah. Now, if you put, share drinking out of it and just say, shares, preferred glass, now you've got a story behind it. Anybody who's aligning with share is going to align with that. That's your influence in marketing at that point.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Sometimes it's a case where it's water's water.
Yep.
But there's something else behind what you are doing as a cause. Your organization could have a separate nature to your brand.
Yep.
You might be fighting for something else. You just happen to be in the water business.
Yes.
Imagine all the products you've passed up on the stores shelves.
I do it all the time. I get these moments of awareness where I'm like, I just walked past millions of dollars of ad budgets, millions of dollars of research, of like R&D.
Yeah.
To pick this brand, right? And like, why did I pick this brand, right? Why did my wife send me to pick this brand? Most likely, because it's like, pick the purple bottle. I'll do this, right? So it's like and I like dial in on that, and it's like, it's for a reason, right? It's like the reason that they're purchasing that is there's a core thing behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's, when you think about it from your own consumer behaviors, you walk into that store, the shelves are littered with different brands. And you walk up and you're like, well, that one looks interesting. It's like, why did you pick that? Yeah. You picked it because of the design. Yeah. And that's the crazy. The design spoke to you.
I love when a design speaks to me because I'm like, yeah, you get me.
That's it.
And that's all good design does, is it just gets the person looking at it.
Brand is the space you occupy in someone's mind. And it's so true because it is sort of, you've been given an impression. You've been given and you fall back on that. We always fall back on what we know and what we understand, what we're comfortable with, and what we feel is good, right? So we gravitate towards that. And our goal as a brand or as a creative or as an agency is to get into that elite mind of that person, that consumer we're trying to woo over to us. So it's an interesting concept, really, to think about it.
Those personalities that stand out the most, or the brands that stand out the most, actually only have one or two stories.
Totally.
And they just stick behind that and all the time.
We know people in our lives, we know celebrities, we know politicians, we know Trumps of the world who can be out there and they have this huge following, and people sit there and they scratch their heads going, why is that?
Yeah. Well, because they say the same story over and over and over.
Yeah.
Doesn't
what
change.
Is it about this guy? And it's like, but there's something that doesn't even have to be said at this point. It's more about they recognize that they stand for something else. They stand for what politicians are not. Right?
Yes.
And that's what they love. Yeah. So
that's a great example.
It's amazing how that mindset is so permeable, and it can, if you can change that mind, you've got a customer for life.
Well, it's funny how, because like millennials, we're like the worst because we're like, we'll sway to whatever brand suits what we want, right? Yeah. There's little to no brand loyalty, they say. But when you start diving deeper into it, it's like, no, there's not that there's no brand loyalty. It's that no brands are speaking to millennials. Yeah, that's the difference. Because there are brands that millennials love and they are hooked on them. Yeah. Right? But no one wants to talk about that. They just speak their language. They represent their desired future state, right? Like Red Bull is a great example, right? That brand came from nowhere. It was like, it's too expensive to market. So what do? Let's go to these, small niche X Games kind of style things, and we'll just put up a van there and sell our drinks, and we'll tell them that we're the drink of the extreme sports. And now they're dominating the market. Like still to this day, I mean, you have others like Monster who are coming up behind, but again, they stand for like high octane, usually car related or some kind of petrol related kind of antics. Yeah. But Red Bull, and they understand their market, and you don't see many 50-year-olds drinking Red Bull.
No.
Right. And that's the part that I'm starting to really understand as I kind of grow up in this industry, is like learning when to say no to clients because they just don't fit the brief.
We see it all the time. Yeah. You would see it. I even see it when you ask a customer, what's your target audience? What's your client? And, 9 times out of 10, you'll get someone who says everybody, right? And you're like, okay, now let's get serious. Like, who is it? Yeah. I work with? It's because it's hard. It's hard to be bold enough to say, I'm only going to focus on these. So,
I think, and the way that I'm getting around it is, so AMP is one thing, and then Mind Fusion is the other thing. And so Mind Fusion is what I know really well. So like I know the production work and all that. And so I work in there, and then the AMP thing is slowly ticking along. Like this is who we are, this is what we stand for, and this is what we're growing. Right? And then just telling those stories as we go.
You don't have to speak to everybody, but figure out how to even lop off a certain demographic and say, okay, let me start there. Maybe then you pare back a little bit more where you realize, I really specialize in this. Yeah. And that's where it could be better.
Early on, you're not always understanding who your target audience are as a business. Yeah. And so you do is you're building out this product, you think it's going to work, but it's not really hitting, right? Or what happens is you go out and you build your product and it hits, but you don't know why. But you just take it. It's like, okay, you're good. I see a lot of businesses there where they've just made something that made money and they've just built a business around it. Yeah. Right? And then they have these little endemic businesses that sprout out of this that don't actually move the needle, but they're there because they made it there. And so they don't go through and chop those limbs off quickly to stop those from like making the brand do this. And so you have like that, those are the best clients I find because they have an operating capital that they're like, okay, we're making money right now, but we could make so much more if we were really specific. And so that's when the brand work really comes in, because then they can sit there and then just throw like, you know, a tube on their output that just says like, we're only going this direction now. And that's branding. And I feel like that's the optimal time when they have, you know, decent budget, when they have the time still. Because I find that when you get above that, you're operating at such a high level that you don't have the time to commit to it. So you get half-assed questions, half-assed answers, right? Because then as a creative, when we go in and try to help solve those problems, we then have to dive back 2 levels to get to this and then go, okay, before those branches came out, this is what really was successful. Yeah, let's build out on that.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, you're at the end of the day, that is probably one of my favorite clients to work with as well. It's one that's got on the other end of sort of trying different things and recognizing what it is that they do best and saying, okay, we want to move our path forward. It's like, okay, that's awesome. Yeah, this is it. This is what you're here for. So you can help them to kind of move that needle that way and help build that momentum. That's the favorite kind of branding to work with, I think.